holders, Department of Finance, other finance boards. These items are filed for the city clerk and may be inspected at room 202, 200 Orange Street, in April. Per order, the Honorable Advertisement, attest local smart city clerk. If you need a disability-related accommodation, please call 3 business days in advance at 946-7651 or 852 TT5. According to the City of New Haven COVID-19 requirements, all attendees must have masks. May send comments to public testimony at NewHavenCT.com. Good evening, everyone. This is the second of our many meetings these coming weeks on the mayor's proposed budget. It is our first public hearing. I would like members of the committee please to introduce yourselves. I'm starting. I signed up to talk.
I'm Dr. Ward.
Taisha Walker Myers, Ward 23.
It's all city.
Frank Douglas, Ward 2.
Evan Hamilton, Ward 24.
Michael Fowler.
Bobby Kohler, Ward 18.
And colleagues, I also recognize Alder Sal Punzo, not a member of the committee, but here to listen to these proceedings that we deserve. So, a couple of procedural announcements before we begin. You might notice that I'm holding this microphone quite close to my mask. That is what I would like each and every one of you to do when you come up to speak. For 2 reasons. 1, so that everyone may hear. And 2, so that it can be a good part of our record. We are going to proceed first with the public hearing. We'll begin that in just a moment. We will then proceed to the final workshops. I'd like to recognize Alder Richard Turlow from Ward 27 to join us. We might go slightly out of sequence in terms of the workshops. I believe that we'll begin with the Office for Persons with Disabilities once we get to that portion of our agenda, and then our intention is to move forward with the notice sequence that we are. So at this time, I wonder if Mr. Hayden has any people on the sign-up sheet. So there's no one currently on the sign-up sheet to give public testimony in the budget. Would any member of the public wish to give testimony on the mayor's proposed budget for next fiscal year? A second time, would any member of the public wish to give public testimony on the mayor's proposed budget for the next fiscal year? And for a third time, would any member of the public wish to give public testimony on the mayor's proposed budget for the next fiscal year? Seeing none, I think what I'm going to do, which might be a little bit unusual, is simply launch right into the workshops without closing the public portion. Just in the event that 13 people show up and they wish to testify, I would hate to exclude them just because they missed their process on such day. So, Mr. Hayden, the sign-up sheet remains in the back. The sign-up sheet remains in the back. Thank you. So I'm not going to ask for a motion to close the public portion in the event that somebody shows up late, and we wouldn't want to exclude them from giving testimony this evening. Having said that, let us move into our departmental workshops. I invite the director of the Office for Persons with Disabilities to come forward. Wow. Our colleagues who are sitting in the chairs facing me, when you wish to ask a question or during deliberations, feel free to use those microphones, which work really well. You keep them muted when you're not actually, when you don't actually ask for it. This is a regular name and
My name is Gretchen Talk, and my address is 228 Moscow Road.
And you, sir, name and address for the record.
Mike Norman, 35
just one moment. Perhaps Mr. Hayden can assist with the distribution of materials, because they're doing better. Mr. Brooks, he's covered most of the topics. So it'll be useful for us to refer to during the course of the and so on. During that. This are the notes starting on PowerPoint page 72. Page 72, where will we at for everyone's reference?
My budget is primarily the same as requested last year, as far as personnel and special funds or changes. The general fund budget, I requested an additional $20,000. And that is set up with the goal of improving city compliance with the American Disabilities Act and other federal disability laws. The budget specifically, I'm looking at the increase to help with improving effective communication at press conferences and other city events. That will include monies for sign language interpretation and closed captioning, open captioning, depending on what would be effective for the individuals. The benefit, however, would be to many of our citizens who have don't really qualify as having a disability or haven't identified themselves as having a disability. It would allow people who may have some hearing loss or some type of intellectual disability or brain injury to be able to take in information in multiple formats, which is makes it much more effective for that. In addition, my goals for the year are to increase employment opportunities for people with disabilities. That would include the continuation of a work group that we started to help gigantic studios with employing people with disabilities in many of their various apprenticeship and internship programs. We've already met with them. We have state and local leaders assisting, and we're hoping that that's going to provide a great number of opportunities for people with disabilities coming up. Also, I'll be working with the commission to effectively address systemic issues for people with disabilities. In the city, this year, the commission had a retreat and looked at new ways to look at the systemic issues that come in and how they will be addressed. Difficult to promise. We'll also be looking to improve emergency preparedness for people with disabilities in the training of emergency managers and also people with disabilities and helping to be prepared for these emergencies. We're going to have many more around past a few years. And a couple of things we'll be working with area organizations to present a resource fair and celebration of the American Disabilities Act. We'll continue to provide information, training, consultation to city staff. And the city was, the Department of Services for Persons with Disabilities was asked to participate in a big read in 2023 because the book chosen was written about a woman with a disability.
Yep, so looking at slide 72, as Ms. Knopf said, that is really the budget. To help the city come into compliance with ADA and other accommodations that. The next slide, slide 73, goes just to break down per department. You guys notice it's really just target personnel, 79% of the office. With the other portion being other contractual services. And slide 74 is just locally with the department. So with that, we will take any questions.
Thank you,
Thank you both very much for that concise presentation. Before we proceed to questions from members of the committee, I'd like to recognize our colleague, Alderman Hurt, right there. Okay, so the members of the committee have questions. Just as a reminder of our procedure, during Zoom, I would read through the role, or my predecessor, Chair Hamilton, would read through the role of committee members as it was published online. And first, we asked if that alter that question. Now we're going to resume the former practice, which is to ask colleagues to raise their hands. And I can see it much more easily than on Zoom. So at this time, does any member of the committee have any questions? Please. Seeing none, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you very much.
And we'll move to the next part.
The next part on the PowerPoint is
Clerk, page 51 of the PowerPoint. And of course, names and addresses for the record with yourself.
Park on One Street.
The names are here, 58 people.
All right, so in the city clerk's office, they have the budget proposal for $532,109. Starting at the day, you now have some changes in your electric permit fees, you now have capital depreciation. They do not have any non-personnel changes. They do have a whole electric permit fee, but you will see that their budget did increase by $24,000. That was due to a personnel hire. Someone was promoted within the office, which required a higher than budgeted salary. Usually happens when you have collective bargaining contracts that have no means that we hire them at a higher salary. So with that being said, it did result in a larger budget going in, adjusting from the current fiscal year 22 going into fiscal year 23. Going on to the next slide, on 52, which is really just a pie chart of their department, you will see that 58% of their department is personnel. They do have a small overtime line. State and department. And then you have 30% of rental services, which is part of for their anything related land records, election, or so 553 is really just a snapshot of the license permits within the department, which carries over to slide 54. Slide 55, again, mentioned the personnel change, which was an increase in the deputy city clerk. When the mayor was removed. No, not personnel changes, and for slide 56, which is proposed initiative, I will let Mrs. Martin talk about their part.
So the goals for 22-23 is to promote efficiency for the software program. New and state COVID guidelines and protocol
too smart, I'm sorry. You might just need to bring that mic a little closer to that. Okay, so.
You hear? Okay, executing, new election software and compliance with state guidelines, continue to operate safely and effectively in total environment. Community outreach, and to promote the absentee outreach, state return elections, cross-training staff, position is going to be filled, we're looking to fill with our assistant city council clerk. And then we have a title change position from election specialist to election specialist, which is a person in the office that's taking on the duties to kind of help us as far as streamlining that kind of work with our rule. Expect it to be a very, very busy year with the midterm elections. Feel like we're here, staff here to do that. And working and the new position, which has been going very, very long, in a very year, but one thing to her. Deputy position, all out of substantively.
Yes, and before we proceed with that, I would like to acknowledge Alder Smith for his comments. And I also wanted to point out something. This is a presentation that you have in the PowerPoint that includes the fees associated with the department. Just as a reminder to colleagues, when we vote on the budget in May, one of the ordinances pertains to fees and permits and things that we charge residents for certain services, but they don't necessarily get presented in one bill, they get presented in the department workshop associated with them. So we hear about those fees and fines and permit amounts scattered throughout the workshop based on the department that's associated with those fees. So we vote on them as a particular ordinance all on its own. So having explained that, let's see if members of the committee have questions. Raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you both. Just more of clarification as to what does the state pay for regarding elections. So I see that, absentee ballots are on our finances. What does the state pay for? And also, with absentee ballots possibly changing, I think it's on their desk, it's going to the Senate next, if I'm not mistaken, all that stuff.
They don't pay for anything. Well, they send us new material as they pass the law. They don't pay for anything. We pay for the actual ballots, printing of the ballots, the postage.
Thank you. I just thought maybe they contributed something, but honestly. So taxpayers. Take a pocket. And then just that other question in regards to probable elections being affected if this new law passes.
Well, instead of scrambling in a sense, because the state is last minute with their forms, when they change new forms and when new things come out. But we respond pretty quickly. It doesn't delay us in getting things to the public as it should.
Sure, you or maybe the registrar, but redistricting or your department.
It doesn't really affect us. It's registrars. They let us know, and Mr. Lucas has invited us to attend some of the workshops. here and will respond to that question. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, our city registrar is having this here. Hear from her shortly. Further questions from committee members? Alderman Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These are tinier categories, but the registration dues and subscriptions, maintenance service agreements, and legal lawyer fees together are about $30,000. But in the last 4 years, actual figures that were reported in a binder, no more than $2,000 was spent across the three. So I wanted to check in and see if still over.
Yes, I think, Alderman, for COVID during the last few years has certainly played a part in some of those actual figures that you see, on the 106 form. Obviously, the city will do everything that is done in the last few years. There are certain registration and dues that the city clerk is a part of that are yearly dues that go against that line item. As far as legal service goes, that is really a contingency if any legal matters may arise that may happen with the election or land rep or whatever the case is for the city clerk's office. So again, I think, that's all amount of money in the city clerk's office. I think it's $10,000 for legal services. That's really so we have a lot of money just in case we need to defend ourselves in any matter.
Well, that makes sense. The other two categories are even pre-COVID, very little was spent.
So again, I think those are there. We are part of various registrations, so we can certainly look into that. But those funds are really used for the memberships and stuff that the city clerk's office is part of.
Yeah. Conferences that we usually, the state conferences that we have, we used to attend. It's not a local venue, so we would attend conferences, state and our association.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Winter. Further questions from colleagues, finance committee members for these individuals? Seeing none, I want to thank you. Thank you for having our city town clerk back, and best wishes to you, sir. Continue to be there. You'll be astonished how many times I make announcements about these microphones, which are kind of tricky. One thing is, there's a button on the microphone, don't push it. It just turns it off and then it takes a while to turn back on. The other thing is, when you use a microphone, don't do it like this. Because then you're speaking. Do it like this, like you're a rock star. Make sure like the direction of your speech should line up with this line of the microphone. I'm serious, we want to be able to hear you. And when you move your head, move the microphone with you. Otherwise, people won't be able to hear you. Next on our list is the registrar of votes.
That is page 59.
I can tell already that you have to hold closer to your mouth. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are the registrar of voters office, which had a few changes to their particular budget for going in from this. There was an increase of $113,300 in their personnel account in the mayor's proposed budget. The registrar of voters bring in, a small amount of revenue, there's no revenue changes, to their budget, they did not make any changes in their license permits or fees. And they do not have any capital. Going on to slide number 60 is the breakdown of their departmental budget, which is 54% is personnel, which makes up that personnel pie chart makes up their part-time and full-time line items. Then you'll see 32% is rentals and contracts, that's contractual services that they use to run their departments. And there is a small line item for overtime of $40,000 and materials and supplies. So again, slide number 60 is really the breakdown of their department. Slide 61 shows the four-year budget history, the budget history. And here you can see the increases and decreases within their budget. From the change from fiscal year 22 to 23. And that means that in the on my part, but I will say there are some non-personnel changes, primarily in contractual services and printing environment. So that is my moving on to slide number 62 is their license permits and fees. And again, you'll see the budget for the last few years. And there are no changes within their license permits and fees going into fiscal year. So what I will do is I will turn it over to Chanel and Marlene to talk about some of their personnel changes and part-time payroll and some of the non-personnel changes and contractual services and purchasing environment and a little bit of a department overview.
For personnel changes, we did ask for an increase for part-time and for also for overtime for our staff. As we all know, this is another big year, state election. So we will need more people. We want to make sure we have enough and not the amount that we usually have. And also to remember that every year changes. So last year it was local, so we didn't have that polling places. This year the polling places increased, so that means we have people to increase as well. And also this is the year for EDR, where we will have the max that we can to have people over in the not chambers, but in the meeting room. And that's basically the personnel for part-time and for overtime for our staff, but we go out to events to help support events that you guys do, and just events that our office decides to do with the community to make sure we have people registered, as well as also hiring people to help with whatever work we need done for the office. Non-personnel changes, increase in other contractuals. Again, this is the year for more turnout and quite a few things that I also put forward in initiatives that will break down for the fire for the staff overtime and also for what we would like as well to run the election smoothly, like it has been for the past couple of elections. We will also like to invest in our own rental instead of going out to the rental, basically to rent tables and chairs. If we have them on our own, we can get the plastic ones and not have low quality, but that's what it is from the rentals. They're not the best. Tables with splinters, tables that are basically done. So we want to kind of have our own stuff in house, so we will also decrease the budget going forward. Printing and binding. Because we are doing it, this sort of answer all the justice questions with redistricting, because we will have to send out letters, etc. So that's going to cost more. Not only that, the paper has gone up. So we have to take that into consideration as well.
our office, yeah, and the price of envelopes. Pretty much overall, our office is still doing the same things we've been doing, our canvassing, which also includes the mailing, the paper, all of that stuff. We do our online where there's stuff from DMV that comes in and we have to monitor that, etc. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, so unless Martin has something to add.
I think you said the biggest thing is the table chair.
As far as waivers concerned.
Just want
The
to make sure.
purchase of it.
The purchase of tables. Just want to make sure that needs to rest.
Sorry.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that presentation. Now it's time for questions from the committee. Do members of the committee have questions? Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Question regarding special elections. We know we might have one, possibly for the Board of Ed. We're not sure yet. How will that affect the budget? Will it affect the budget? And what are we going to do if we anticipate a special election?
So we try to always add in for special elections, whether it happens or not. I know in the past we have been lucky where it's only one election. So yes, we also put that in for special elections as well.
Okay, so it's already being considered in the budget.
Correct.
Okay, and oh, you know what, and maybe this is for you, Mr. Gorman, but there's a repeat with duties of 2 general registrars or voters. That statement that is in our 106 form, it's in 2 places. And one is, the first place I saw it was for $1,000. And then this other page has an increase from 310 last year to 325.
I'll certainly check that out.
Okay, yeah, it's
Through
just,
the chair.
the verbiage is the same. So Mr. Chair, if you can.
We'll get to the bottom of it. Alder Festa.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And then you mentioned community outreach for registration. Do you reach out to the schools to help out and get the students involved? Also, DMV now automatically registers any new kids that go get their licenses or permits, actually, their permits. Is that helping you? Because I'm sure any kid getting their permit who is eligible to vote or within the 6 months prior to their 18th birthday automatically get registered. So is that helping you out and just to reach out to the schools?
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, by state statute, we do have to reach out to the high schools in general. We try to make our business to make 2 trips, even though we're only required 1, because we want to give students 2 opportunities. 1, to get community service, if that's what they desire, or they can get paid, or they can do both. And yes, we do tell them up front, if you're 17, but you'll be 18 by the general election, you must register to vote in order to work. And we also give opportunity for 16-year-olds and up to get their feet wet with the election. So when they do come of age to register, that will kind of help them and encourage them to do so.
Okay, thanks for that. And also just one more thing regarding community outreach, and that is in regards, are we going to do any for the when redistricting takes place? Because that's gonna create a whole nother level of confusion.
Yes, so we will like to also make sure that we work with you guys, everyone, all the alders, to kind of, be on the same page. And we will send out letters to electors, giving them that information. And if they have any questions, we encourage you to tell them, do not hesitate to contact our office to ask questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Festa. I saw Alder Walker-Myers, and I'm looking for others.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question. When I see the increase in the payroll, do you know approximately how many people you possibly will hire?
But the payroll for workers or payroll?
The increase, you said that you would possibly need more people hired during the election. Do you actually have like a hard number or just approximately how many people you think because I know the polling places that open their staff a certain way. Are we thinking about adding additional staff there to help since COVID is here? Or I just want a little bit more explanation on that. Thank you.
Not a problem. Yes, so for inside your polling places, because we do hire and say someone subtracts, so we want to make sure we have additional people just on standby. And also for EDR, because we'll have, during the local year, we'll have less people versus the state and federal year. So having workers there as well as workers here, and the rates are different. So I can't give you an exact amount, but I can give you a breakdown of which position does what. I don't mind that.
Thank you. And then I have one more question. I thought I only had one. So, you know, even though we are moving out of COVID, I guess, during the election time last year, and when we had the polls open during COVID, were there any things that you saw that need change as far as more staff, right? Because I know going into the polling places, we want everybody to wear masks. We tell them to make sure their hands are sanitized and all of those things so that we're not actually spreading COVID. But in certain places, people went to the polls, people got COVID. So I'm just trying to think ahead. Flu season will be coming up during election time. We don't know whether COVID-19 is going to be coming up again during election time. Does it make sense to also take into account to have someone in addition at the polls to do some of that kind of making sure people actually really have on their masks, have them on correctly, make sure their hands are sanitized and those things?
Yes, so the issue, now I want to say the issue. So the state goes by whatever the municipality does. And we can't force someone to wear a mask. That was the issue that they were trying to do. So what we did was try to, hey, well, whether we clear everyone out, they go in, proceed, and then they wipe down, as you all know that we've hired people to also wipe down after electors. So we can still try to do that method, but I am definitely open to other options.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Myers. Alder Linden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question about the table and chairs. Does the city have like a central bank of tables and chairs for events? Or what do departments do? Like, I'm trying to imagine if other departments needed, you know, these tables and chairs throughout the rest of the year, if we have any central pool of kind of event equipment.
So I can certainly check on that for you, Alder Winter. I know that depending on the department and the events. So for large scale events, you know, we generally use like the ones that you see in the second atrium. We usually use Taylor Rental to get the tables and chairs. I believe, and again, I'll check on it, Parks and Public Works has some equipment, but it's not like the standard equipment you would use for events. So again, a majority of the time we're using the rental services for various events that you see, especially around City Hall.
And might I also add to that, for especially because of COVID, we do try to get the longer tables to kind of still keep our workers distance, but still able to communicate and do their job.
Yeah, thanks. It'd be helpful to have just information on what we have, and maybe other departments will use these the rest of the year if we end up buying some for the membership. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Winter. I have a couple of requests, I think 3 requests to the chair so far. One is Alderman Winter's request, this question of event equipment and whether we have inventories of that spread across our different facilities and departments. I heard Alder Myers asked about the temporary help who are hired to run elections and offer to provide information about the goals that they would fulfill. And then of course, Alder has pointed out the issue with one of our 160 forms. I see that Alder Hamilton raised their hand.
Thank you, Chair Martin.
My question is about the voter registration machines, Have we worked with the state at all to shore up those machines? Years of past, in any election, there's been major chaos in a lot of votes with, the tabulating machines and their operations. Some of them not working, falling apart during the election process. Have we worked together at all with the state to shore up those machines to make sure when there is an election, that these machines are actually working the way they should?
Ooh, yes, so I will be asking for you guys your help, especially the ones that have been affected by this. All the machines are refurbished. There is a contract with the state, and I believe it's up in 26, if I'm not mistaken. And legislators did not pass a law where we can use other machines. Because unfortunately, right now, where they're under contract, they're all refurbished. There's nothing new at all. The thing that, yes, and the parts are hard to come by, is what Marlene said. The issue is, we will do a test, because we send out the letters to you guys, because we're testing the machine, and it goes well. But once it gets to the poll, again, we try to advertise, do not put ballots through it, because these are man-made machines, they're going to break. And even though we pay the maintenance fee for them to come out to do it, it seems like they still aren't working. So trust me, I don't want this issue as much as you do, because you and I have worked together with that. So I will look for your help and your cooperation as we go before the state to kind of figure something out to, hey, get us better machines, do something.
Please continue.
Thank you.
And before you go, Ms. Evans, sometimes when you move your head this way.
Sorry, like this, I'm sorry.
No,
Your
it's okay.
demonstration
I'm sorry
was
to
so
be such a
perfect.
microphone
I'm so
now,
sorry.
but you need everybody to hear everything.
Thank you, Chair Marshall, for that. So when do you expect that you're gonna go in front of the Secretary of State, is it, office? To trash out, because we have a contract that we're paying for the maintenance of these machines currently, right?
Correct.
And now, when things fall apart in the middle of an election process, what's their response? How do we salvage that we pay the maintenance and the maintenance just fell apart?
They don't know why.
Really?
Yeah,
And
and
when are
we
these contracts
will
done?
write a letter, we can set up a time to meet with the state if that's what needs to be done, but to write them a letter, showing that we're all on board.
Through the chair, I would like to follow up on that to see exactly how we handle those processes, because if we're paying out money for a maintenance contract, we should be getting our money's worth out of that contract, and it sounds like right now, I've personally, from personal experience in Ward 24, I've seen the drama that you've gone through, Chanel, with these voter machines that fell apart during our election. And it's totally unacceptable. And I mean, there has to be a better way to handle that situation. And like I said, as we're paying out money for this maintenance contract, we should be getting our money's worth. And right now, I don't see that happening. Okay, thank you, Chair Marchand.
Thank you, Alder Hamilton, and your request will be given due consideration.
Thank you so much.
Other alders who wish to ask questions of our representatives from the registrars or the council? Follow-up question, Alder Fessa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you may have addressed this, but I don't see it on the other two documents unless I'm missing it. Oh, no, there it is. So it wasn't on our 106 form. The 106 form indicates 40,000 this year to 50,000 for printing and binding. I didn't see it on this form, but I see it on your presentation that we just got. So
I will make sure to update that tomorrow.
it's just for consistency, if anything.
Nope, I appreciate it. It's a lot of
Thank you.
forms that my office is updating, so yes.
Thank
most
you.
certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Fessa. Any further questions from colleagues on this topic? Seeing none, we're going to move to the next department. Thank you, ladies, for.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your participation and work as well.
Next on the list will be the Fair Rent Commission.
Mr. Chair, that will be slide 67.
Slide 67 in the presentation. And I just want to remind colleagues of a point of protocol. We're a very friendly bunch here, but we are also formal public record, so we should call people by their last name and not their first name. James Vesper. Don't push the button.
Good evening, my name is Rosalie Trevino, 6 Atwood Street, Hartford, soon to be moving to 224 Front Street, New Haven.
All right, thank you, others. Again, this is the mayor's 22-23 proposed budget for fair ranks. This should be a fairly easy one. There are no changes in this budget. In personnel or non-personnel. This budget is going, is the same amount from fiscal year 22 through fiscal year 23, which is indicated as well on slide number 68. You will see a majority of Ms. Bermuda's budget is personnel. That is 99% of her budget. It is Ms. Bermuda's and one other individual. So what I will do is turn it over to Ms. Bermudez to kind of give an overview of her department for fair rent.
Thank you so much. New Haven's Fair Rent Commission is an exciting body, and it allows our municipality to regulate housing conditions. The Fair Rent Commission's purpose is to control and eliminate excessive rental charges on residential property. And why is this important? It's especially important as we're undergoing severe housing shortage, and this helps with rent stabilization. So what do? We can receive formal complaints through our website, portal, via email, fax, and in person. And I'd like to walk through a little bit in terms of the last slide of this presentation, the goals and initiatives.
Could you give the page number?
Slide number 69.
Goals. Update our website. So it's really important for us to update the website and have FAQs on the website, frequently asked questions. We would also like to add tenants' rights listed on the website, as well as additional resources. For example, if you look at Hamden's Fair Rent Commission, they have really great additional resources for tenants that we would like to include on our website, and set up a general email box to streamline the complaints that we were receiving. Also, another goal is to produce a semi-annual report. Right now, I am in week 2, and I'm in a fact-finding mission. And as part of this fact-finding mission, my goal is over the next 6 months, to produce a report that includes information on the types of inquiries that we receive. So this includes statistical analysis, using GIS mapping, locations aligning with the census tract of where we receive the complaints and what complaints have been sustained after we were able to conduct the public hearing. The semi-annual report would also include best practices research of other fair rent commissions at the national level. Would also like to include, as part of the goal, to develop a public outreach strategy, and first and foremost, a presence on social media. A great example of this is using the health department. Our city's health department does really well, just using them as an example, posting their social media, Facebook, Twitter, and linking it to the website, to the city's website. So having either a TikTok page, Facebook, Instagram, also producing a short video on YouTube so that tenants understand what the process is to file a complaint and what the commission does. Also would love to disseminate flyers that have a QR code in them posted on it within the zip codes where we have the most prevalent complaints. Additionally, as public outreach strategy, attending community management team meetings is a must, a necessity. And I will be doing that, and attending meetings with all of you alders as well. in order to further do outreach into the community to let them know that we exist and that we could assist. Also additionally, manage and maintain the fair rent field representative investigations. We do have a staffer who's a field representative. And due to COVID, we had to slow down on the field investigations that they were doing. But we would like to continue doing that practice. And if requested and if it's feasible for them to be able to go out into the field beyond the regular 9 to 5 hours. So as to meet the community where they're at. We would also like to develop forecasting principles. And as we all have seen, because of the repercussions of COVID-19 crisis for the quality of the city's housing, it's going to take some time for us to see how that's being panned out, the aftermath of this COVID pandemic. But it's important that we see, that we map, and that we forecast potential trends within our scope of work within the Fair Rent Commission. And with that, it's important that we develop a new language to meet the needs of the community. For example, this has been communications that we're trying to develop, but would be great if we could include tenants unions language included within the ordinance. Additionally, obtaining grant funding to acquire software so that it can assist with the forecasting principles. That is, those are some of the goals. And then in terms of the initiatives, collaborate with the health department on lead issues, developing a pipeline to recruit interns, establish community partnerships, for example, neighborhood housing services and others, assist with potential housing programs in collaboration with the Office of Economic Development. For example, Housing for All is a great program. And so overall, this is a really exciting time for our city of New Haven to be a leader in Connecticut on fair rent commissions. And the reason is that right now there's a lot of momentum at the state legislature to approve a bill that would require Connecticut municipalities with populations of 14,000 and up to establish fair rent commissions. Given that New Haven has already been a leader in having a fair rent commission, a very robust one, we will definitely be an amazing asset as other municipalities are on board to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation. We're now going to move to questions from committee members. I'm looking to see if colleagues have questions on this topic. I have a quick comment more than a question. First of all, welcome. We represented your new to role, but already you've set a course for yourself and your department is quite ambitious. We appreciate that. I was going to ask you about tenants unions. I think when you're deeper into your work, it might be good for you to report back through the appropriate committee about the work that you're doing. You listed a number of meetings that your committee could go to. I don't mean to add another one because you probably have a busy schedule already, but of course the Affordable Housing Commission is certainly very much aligned, I think, with the goals of your department as well. So look forward to hearing more from you as you grow into your role and have a better assessment of what's going on and what the need is. And we thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Seeing no raised hands, we're now going to thank you and move to our next department, which is the mayor's office.
All right, Mr. Chair, that is slide number 9, beginning of slide number 9.
I believe we'll wait for Mr. Madison to hear your comments.
Thank you very much, Sean Madison. I serve as the Chief of Staff to the City of New Haven, in the Office of the Mayor, and I reside at 1279 Quinnipiac Avenue in the 12th Ward. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Madam President, Mr. Majority Leader, Third Officer, and the rest of the members of the Finance Committee. Appreciate the time tonight to present on the request out of the Mayor's office. The difference in the general fund budget and the request from this proposed budget from out of fiscal year 2022. We do not have any general fund revenue changes. We do not have any programs to generate revenue within our department. And we do have some position changes inside the department, which I would like to take a moment to highlight. What we've done is eliminated some positions and retitled or reclassified some from the receptionist, citizen specialist.
I'm sorry, Mr. Madison, slide number 11.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Gorman. Slide number 11. Thank you. Please continue.
The citizens specialist position in the mayor's office reclassified it to special projects, citizens advocate. They are doing some case management on requests which come in through the 8200 phone number, requests for help. They work them through more particular difficult cases, working through the departments in the city. And it's been a great deal amount of time on it. We felt like we wanted to clearly have someone of the two receptionists dedicated to doing that, as well as, in addition to that, continuing their normal duties, but also putting more time into that specific work. We did eliminate the position on the Director of Federal and State Legislative Affairs and reclassified that to Deputy Chief of Staff, a position which has formerly been in the office of the mayor, but has not been there for the past few years. The individual will continue to do the work at both the state and federal level, but in addition to this, will provide additional supports to myself and the mayor on items of policy and other administrative functions, work much more deeply with other departments in moving policies through some of those departments, as well as represent the city and the mayor in regional meetings and state meetings. And some of this was, again, the outgrowth of some of the good work that's been done and expand, adding additional duties. There was an increase into the policy analyst position, and the adjusted salary on the Director of Communications was a new hire this year. And there are no changes in the personnel, non-personnel line items. Other than that, I believe everything else has pretty much stayed the same in the other categories, the non-personnel categories. And happy to talk to you about some of the things we'll be working on this year and or answer any questions you may have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. Anything to add, Mr. Gorman?
No, I think Mr. Madison covered it all. So
Great. Well, questions from committee members for these two gentlemen about the mayor's office?
I have a couple.
Alder Festa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The special projects and citizen advocate, are they bilingual or more?
We have bilingual people in the office in supporting roles. And again, that's not been our issue. We trying to just get we sometimes get calls in for help that cuts across multiple departments. And
we're gonna try to spend more time in case managing some of those directly through until their logical outcomes have been achieved. We've also coupled that with some work that we've done in customizing the VOG system in a way that allows us to log calls and track some of those calls that are for service that come through. Try to get them through the city departments and to a reasonable outcome for both the individual making the call for service as well as our standards.
Just making sure you try to close to your mouth is better. That's much better.
Okay, I guess that was more than a yes or no, but I appreciate everything that is behind helping all persons of the city who have language barriers and also our folks that come in through Iris, et cetera. So, and this is just a question regarding, there's no increase in the budget, but what type of advertisement services is there for the mayor's office? Because don't we have Info New Haven, Market New Haven, et cetera, or is this something else? It says advertisement services for mayor's office. Can you just explain what that is?
Sure, and again, some of this would be anything from our email, our email client server, I forget which one we're currently using, to including advertising for special events, things like Meet the Mayor or Mayor's Night Out, in addition to any other community events that we may be hosting, that the mayor may be hosting, or public meetings, and anything that may need some flyers and or advertisements to make the public aware that the event is taking place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hudson. Further questions from members of the committee? Regards to the mayor, proposed budget for the mayor's office. Any questions from colleagues on this topic? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Madison. We'll move on to the workshop.
Thank you all.
Corporation Counsel. I think we have a team.
And Mr. Chair, that will be slide 15.
So, welcome to the table. Good to see you all. With these names and addresses for the.
I'll start and pass the mic on. Patricia King, Corporation Counsel, 32 Vista Terrace, New Haven.
I'm Donald Patty, Director of Legal Relations. Legal Coast Control. Michelle Crane, 175 Second Lane, East Haven.
Carla Purnell, Executive Assistant to the Corporation Counsel, 108 Branford Road, North Branford. Catherine Lamar, Deputy Corporation Counsel for Transactions and Policy, 1654 Alabama Boulevard, New Haven, Connecticut.
Robert Williams, Deputy Corporation Counsel, 20 Lancelot Drive, North Haven. All right, Mr. Chair, I will start off the presentation to sort of give an overview of the mayor's proposed budget for Corporation Counsel.
Before we proceed, Mr. Romney, I'd like to recognize Alderman Jeanette Morrison, member of the committee, who has joined us. I would have invited you to join us at the table, but the chair preferred not to, but later on, you just join us to make sure you know,
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the corporation council budget is increasing by a total of $442,149. This is a mixture of personnel and primarily legal services within the department that Ms. King and her team will go over in a few minutes. They do not have any license permits or fees or any revenue associated with their department, so there are no changes in there, nor do they have any capital within their department. Moving on to slide number 16, which again is just a breakdown of their departments. As you can see, 58% of their department makes up personnel, which are, and again, this is that 58% is the total of corporation, counsel, and labor relations, which is all within the same department, but it's 58% of their budget, followed by 41% of their budget, which is rental and contractual services, primarily made up of their legal service accounts. Sorry, all right, I believe slide 17 is a breakdown of the budget for fiscal year 23. Again, you'll see in the corporation council side an increase in the salaries account of 24,000, a little bit over 24,000. That is due to restoring a previously eliminated assistant corporation counsel position, which Ms. King and the team will go over. Also, while increasing the Board of Ed reimbursement that we get. As you know, a few years ago, thanks to the help of this board and the Board of Auditors, we did fund an attorney along with a small reimbursement from the Board of Education, because so many of their services trickle over onto the city side as well. So again, we'll talk a little bit about that. The legal lawyer account did increase by $300,000. Again, that is due to ongoing legal services. And again, we are in a reval year, and we have seen an increase in appeals as well. So when someone appeals to the court, that funding comes out of corporation counsel legal service. We use outside counsel for tax appeals and do some in-house as well. So that budget is increasing by $300,000, and then labor relations has a salary increase due to reclassifying a position, as well as increasing their legal service line and their other contractual services line. So to explain those increases, I will turn it over to Pat King and her team, starting on the next slide 18.
Thank you very much. Starting with the items on slide 18, the restored position of Assistant Corporation Counsel was created, is a position that was hired in 2019. As Mr. Gormany said, that was partially funded by the Board of Education. They contributed $30,000 towards this salary. The understanding was that some of this work trickled over, as Mr. Gormany said, to the city side. But as it turns out, once the attorney was on board and started working with the Board of Education, it became very clear that this should be a full-time position assigned only to the Board of Ed, because there was a significant need for legal services advice on a daily, ongoing basis for legal services. And so, frankly, our office got very little service from this employee because he was so busy advising the Board of Education. So what this represents would be that the Board of Education would fully fund an attorney position. It would be under Corporation Counsel, because I think that's what's required under the charter, since this office provides legal services to all the city employees, boards, and commissions. But that we would pick up the funding for the Board of Ed contribution, that the current employee would either go fully over to the Board of Ed, they would fully fund his position,
by contributing the difference between the 30 they already paid plus the additional amount to fully fund that position. And we would then contribute the 30 to another position. The Board of Ed could either hire its own attorney or work on the hiring, I should say, work with us on the hiring of the position for the Board of Ed, which would be certainly workable on our end. And then we would get the attorney currently assigned to the Board of Ed to come back on the city side, and we are a salary of the additional help. So that's that. On the labor relations side, we have increased a position from an executive assistant to a labor relations research analyst, because we have one support person working in labor relations right now under executive assistant. This employee has 23 years of experience in the office. And at the current time, we only have the director of labor relations plus this administrative assistant, who has frankly been working beyond her job description for years by providing additional assistance beyond an executive assistant position. If she were a union member, she would be able to put in for reclassification. But because she's confidential, the only way that we can recognize the work that she does, make sure that she's working within her job description and compensate her accordingly, is to go through this process of essentially changing the position. The job that she currently does requires a fair amount of independent judgment beyond what we would expect from the sort of secretarial administrative function that is included in the executive assistant position. If you want further details on the differences, I'll be happy to go into that. That's basically, and she's invaluable. And I'm sure Attorney Elbady can tell you, she has been invaluable in that. So those are the personnel changes that we are looking for in this budget. As to the outside counsel fees, we have, as you know, had to increase outside counsel fees due to the current staffing shortage in labor relations. We currently are advertising and seeking to fill a labor relations staff attorney position, but we will continue to need the services of outside counsel due to the extensive amount of litigation in the labor arena that is required by the filing of grievances, MPP complaints, and other issues, in addition to 7 contracts which are currently open and need to be negotiated. So on the labor relations side, we need funding to cover the legal services for labor relations. We also have, I believe, and Attorney Williams can correct me if I'm wrong, about 1,600 tax appeals currently filed. So we're going to need funding to cover defense of those that make their way into court. And I believe we have about 400 of them that are commercial properties over $1 million. So we're going to have a significant need for legal services funding due to the revaluation that we may not see in future years. So that, I think, pretty much covers where we stand with regard to the outside counsel budget. We have some statistics in the slides, which I will be happy to go over if you have questions about them. The current caseload in litigation, there are 808 pending litigation matters, 112 of which are with outside counsel. And we have 546 pending contracts somewhere in the system. So our staff is pretty busy. And in addition, which is not included on our statistics, our staff represent and advise boards and commissions as part of their job. Some of these boards and commissions can be pretty time consuming. I think Alder Marchand can certainly speak to the needs on the land use side with City Plan Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals, which Attorney Williams performs an invaluable service to our city in advising these 2 positions, which take a lot of time. In addition, Attorney Williams supervises litigators and carries his own caseload. So And Attorney Dupre advises the Board of Police Commissioners, which is another time-consuming job. Attorney Lamar advises the Civilian Review Board. We recently rejuvenated the Board of Ethics. I work with them. They require at least, as I say, they're not included in the statistics, but there's a lot of time, preparation, and attendance at evening meetings that goes on. Sorry, I know. You'll be able to be a coach on the voice after this, but anyway. So I did want to add in that in addition to the figures here on litigation contracts, we advise, field all the questions from the public and everybody, all the city departments that we get. So we do have a BoA portal that Attorney Michelle Dupre has developed as part of her job to try to get a better handle on the labor relations and employment matters. We found that there was need for a coordination to know which employees were out on leave, which employees had disciplinary issues, who have CHROs. So she developed a BoA platform for the different departments to enter data so that we can look that up by department employee. We have a number of ways we can sort through that data. Attorney Dupre can explain these two screenshots briefly if you would like. I'll turn it over to her.
Sure, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about this. When I started last year, I had recognized that we didn't have a good handle on information about employee features citywide. So I developed this over the past year. We just went live a few weeks ago. We track information. We have 5 components there: human resources, risk management, disability services, Office of Labor Relations, and corporation tax. So when employees have issues, those are usually the hubs that sense that issue. And so those entities enter their data when it comes into their department. And there's 2 graphs that show that you can look up data by department or the type of issue. And then I can go in and look at more detailed information in there. I'm hoping to sense when there's an issue earlier on so that we are preventing losses rather than waiting for them to come. I'm hoping that we can sense if there's an employee that needs more support or training or a supervisor that needs more support and training. And for instance, last year we had 29 complaints with the Commission on Joint Activities. We had 3 employees file 11 cases. And of those 3 employees, they touched several of the employment hubs before they filed the CHRO. So those are the types of cases I'm hoping to prevent down the road. And then long term, I really would like to be able to figure out how to use it as a tool to track costs related to employee issues that may come up. That's probably not going to be in the first or second year, but hopefully at some point after that, we can track costs and then have to make sure we have issues.
And I would also note that Attorney Dupre has taken on the defense of CHROs for the office, which some of which would have been sent out to outside counsel. And she has developed a good batting average of success in those cases. And she's supervising another one of our younger attorneys and helping them to also take on this work. So we're working to shore up our defense of employment matters. And Attorney Dupre has worked closely with labor relations because these, as you may be aware, they often, there's crossover. So we're trying to also eliminate 2 people doing the same work, basically.
I was just going to say very briefly that I think when you say CHRO, you're referring to the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunity.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Which is the state body that handles equal opportunity.
Discrimination. That's right. I apologize. So under goals and initiatives, one of the things we would like to do is to continue to provide training and support for all of our boards and commissions, particularly in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and public meeting laws. We intend, as I said, to continue to coordinate with with other departments on labor matters, work on revising city policies. We have been working with the chief administrative officer to work on updating the sexual harassment policies, and there are a number that need to be updated. And we are also, one of our attorneys supports the Fair Rec Commission, which, as you just heard, is looking to expand its reach, and we are excited to be working on that. We also are not sure yet what the affordable housing agenda will bring us this year, but working on the affordable housing issues, the inclusion of zoning and ADU, like auxiliary dwelling unit ordinances, has also taken up a considerable amount of time and work on this stuff.
Yes, we have kept Michael, Pinto quite busy.
Quite a bit. Yes, he's been very, very busy. And the Office of Labor Relations, we are working to increase staffing levels there. Because it is short staff currently. So we're working on that. Attorney Paul Batty is working to support our managers in better handling of personnel matters. And she will continue to advocate for our best interest in labor matters and continue to work with unions to either resolve or reduce the number of disputes that we have. So, and I don't know if she wants to add anything to my presentation.
No, I think that you've done it. I think that you pretty much covered it. It's a pretty comprehensive, you've gone through tax to walk into it, you know, I'm coming into the position as well.
Welcome.
I've been here about a month now and excited about being here, taking on this job, but we need the support, we need financial support, we need bodies, because our unions are quite litigious, as you know, we can't live without them. We must try to work with them.
Delegate request. Thank you very much.
So we'll take questions.
And we'll pass them for you. I'm
Sure.
looking at my colleagues to see who would like to ask questions. Or colleagues from the Corporation Counsel's office. I know that all professor is getting ready, so there's a member of our committee who's ready to go all the winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the increased request for outside counsel, looks like to defend the city, and then also there mentioned police misconduct and issues related to revaluation. Is it possible to break that out at all in terms of like what makes up the bulk of the $300,000 request increase? And how do we weigh that versus bringing on someone in-house?
I'm Rob Williams. I don't know exactly how to break it down. I can speak to the tax appeals for certain. We know that there are at least 400 commercial properties for over $1 million that can pass straight over to court, and if the Board of Assessment Appeals doesn't have to consider them. That's a large volume. We had, just to give you a comparison, 206 from the last revaluation 5 years ago. And so it's doubling, not just doubling the number, it's doubling the number over $1 million. And we now have a counsel. We lost a veteran who defended police misconduct cases last February. He has been replaced, and we're in the process now of bringing those cases back. So the lion's share is for tax appeals. We anticipate that there'll be more this year than there will be in subsequent years, but it's a 5-year revaluation. Typically, people file the first round. There are some. I know in the last cycle where there were 206, the first in 2017 for the 2016 revaluation. I believe there were 18 the next year. So the number drops off, but there are some.
So, Winter, I think, see your question, how did we determine the 300,000? Well, what management and budget did was we kind of took an analysis of what we've seen with tax appeals. Again, this is really our best guess at what we think we'll need, between tax appeals and just general litigation. And Attorney King or her team can correct me if I'm wrong, but with COVID, we've seen courts close, they began to open up, so we're gonna see more court cases, go on that, you know, possibly maybe outside legal services, but, you know, this year we came before the board for a transfer, of 200,000, I believe, and, Attorney King mentioned some of the statistics that we have on the open caseload. So we're really trying to we're really trying to put our best guess in what the increase in legal services may be. Can we definitively say that that will be enough for fiscal year 23? We don't know. I mean, because anybody can sue the city at any time. We don't know what major litigation is going to come up until it comes up. So again, this is really our best guess in what we've seen the last few years related primarily this fiscal year and prior to COVID in just general legal cases, what they have open and what we think with the increased number of tax appeals.
And Alder Winter, I would also like to add that we do have some insurance coverage for certain cases, and some of our high-value civil cases qualify for this coverage, and those cases are sent to outside counsel. And under our policies, we're responsible for the first $1 million, which also includes cost of defense. And when we get to settlement, if we can settle these, or a jury award, the city is responsible for the first $1 million. So, for example, if we use $300,000 on defense, then there's $700,000 left to pay, and after that amount, the insurance coverage kicks in. So we have a number of high-value cases like this. There's a couple of dirt bike accident cases, a couple of claims for wrongful conviction that are going to be high-value cases. Those cases are also go to outside counsel. They're paid to fund and there are expenses associated with the defense of those cases, depositions, experts, and any number of costs that are involved.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all, Roger. I saw, I believe all the rest of us to be on you. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Some of it was a little confusing. There might be some just clarification, particularly on the Board of Ed position hire. So the Board of Ed position is a part-time position?
No, it's a full-time. There was one full-time attorney who was added to the Corporation Counsel's office in 2019. And out of that position, the salary is in the $84,000 range. $30,000 of that was paid by the Board of Ed, with the idea that this attorney would render some advice to the Board of Ed. Over time, it has become, as I said, readily apparent that the Board of Ed needs its own full-time attorney, because that attorney has basically been working full-time for the Board of Ed. Sits through all the meetings, provides any different kinds of advice. So it's really gotten to the point where I think the Board of Ed should fund their own position. And then we would make up the $30,000 that they contribute. So we would get a position out of it. We would get this attorney back if we will, and hire another attorney. The Board of Ed could be involved in picking the attorney, which would be fine, and I think probably preferable. I wouldn't say preferable, but the Board of Ed, I think, would like to be involved in that. So that's that clearly helps.
Yes, and that's what this almost $25,000 salary change is for.
Correct. I mean, as Attorney King said, the original concept was sort of a shared services, but it was very apparent that, the Board of Ed, is utilizing a lot more of this
attorney as opposed to a shared service. So yes, there was some cost that the department picked up because the reimbursement in essence was only going from 30,000 to the full-time salary of 84,000.
For that clarification. I have a question for labor relations. How many contracts are we currently working?
There are 7 open contracts. There are 7 contracts that are currently open. That my charge is to start negotiations on those. We have one that is fairly worked through, but the others are, we have not, some of them we may have exchanged initial proposals. With the caseload currently standing the way it is, and not having another attorney in the office, it is quite challenging for me to get to, quite frankly, contract negotiations. Many of our litigation matters are 2 years old, 3 years old. And previously, the Board of Labor Relations and Board of Mediation and Arbitrations have held those cases in abeyance, held them off. But they are no longer doing it because they're too old. There are statutory criteria, statutory guidelines. So we, for example, there are 5 cases that are scheduled in April, which means that I've been spending, endless hours trying to familiarize myself with these cases. They have to go forward. The board has made it clear they're not postponing. 2 of them, luckily, we've been able to settle on the day of or the day before. But it requires my time in assessing whether or not we can settle these cases. And while we're doing that, there are continuous filings. There were 13 grievance filings filed by the police department just last week, that are, we have to attend a settlement conference for at the end of the month, on the 31st. So it is critical that we get another labor relations attorney in the office, but we've been actively advertising for that, but it's been challenging because it's quite frankly.
Before you follow the question, I'm just going to ask you this, you can respond. Bring that one just a little bit closer so that everybody can hear.
Can you hear me now?
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm not concerned about all the task communities. I want everybody to hear the answers. So it's a government. So you need to be heard.
So when you say another attorney, we do have one in the budget. It's just a matter of finding someone for the salary you said that might be a challenge.
We have, we advertised at least for the last month, and we literally have gone to every entity, every outlet that we can think of, whether it's rules and whether we can go it off. Other than, if you could give us permission to take a billboard that would be wonderful. Find the financing for that. Maybe that would be
Maybe
helpful.
the mayor's office with their advertising.
Thanks for that. But yes, it's a process, and we don't know really how far we get in the process in the next couple of months, and these things are not going to stand in the way for us to.
The other position is just maybe a title.
Yes.
How often do we go beyond that $1 million? How often do we go into the insurance when we reach the $1 million?
We have had, in my recollection, 2 cases in the past year that have gone beyond that. We have at least 1 more in terms of personal injury, which was a motorcycle accident, and we have a couple of wrongful conviction claims that are inching their way towards trial that could also expose us. But there are 2 that I can think of currently that have gone beyond $1 million.
How bad is that? budget for at least $1 million payout, and beyond that. Because each case is individual, right? So each case, if it reaches beyond the million, we have to cover that million. So if we have 2 cases, is that 2 million?
I think, we're getting 2 types of budgets confused, with, Attorney King's office. So with those cases, they generally go to the Litigation Settlement Committee, which has done a great job. Myself, the CAO, President Walker Myers is on the committee. We really do analyze those cases along with the Corporation Counsel's office. And those type of cases go against that particular budget. So what Attorney King's office, if they do see anything out of their budget, maybe if it's a small cost related to the outside counsel that may have helped with that, or something smaller like that. But the majority of the settlement, you know, depending on the structure of the settlement, sometimes it's over a multi-year period, you know, for budgetary purposes, that affects the litigation settlement, not really the outside counsel.
Mr. Berman, just as a point of clarification, I believe that litigation settlement are in the budget study purposes. Correct. So we'll be very talking about that. Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Paul. As a further questions from members of the committee. See, so I'm going to ask mine. I'm free. I want to thank Attorney Craig for her efforts in control of the data in an attempt to prevent some of the disputes such as litigation. It's one thing to have data, it's another thing to know what to do with it, or how to intervene, and how to train management. Could you say a few words about the steps you're taking to launch the appropriate intervention now that you have better control over the situation?
Sure. Well, for a long time, we have an employee group meeting where we sit and talk about difficult issues that have come up related to employees. What we've done in the past has been very broad-based and not as helpful as it could be. Now that we have the tracking system in place, hopefully that group can focus on a very small group of issues that come up that we can try to solve together. And basically, all the people in those employment hubs are at the table trying to come up with solutions together for any particular issue that might come up. So I'm not saying we're going to be able to solve every issue, but if we could prevent of the 3 people that fire 11 CHROs, if we could prevent one of those individuals from doing that or filing a court case, it'll save us time and money and lots of effort. And I think it will help us in the long.
And I would also say that labor relations also has been actively interested and involved in this process as well. And Attorney Altbody sent out recently an email to our coordinators regarding dealing with requests for grievances with the unionized workforce. So, and she can speak more particularly to that today. We just discussed doing that again regarding how to deal with people who want to talk to management when they should be going through labor relations. So there's no, as they say, direct deal. So we're also, so it's a joint effort with our offices.
Before we get more about it in the future. The next question is about those 7 open contracts. And I guess it's more for you, Corporation Counsel, because I is just new to the scene. But 7 open contracts.
Yeah.
That expired in 2020.
Well, not all of them expired in 2020.
Well, that's the list that I have, so I could be wrong.
Not all of them expired in 2020. One of them is the police contract hasn't expired yet. That's, you know, we've got a few months.
Well, under the prior labor relations director, we had the same staffing problem. And also 2020 brought us COVID. So labor relations was also very involved in COVID protocols and how to handle a lot of the COVID related issues. And frankly, the office just did not have the staff to engage in the negotiations while they were also dealing with all the pending litigation. So it's been a carryover. Now that COVID is somewhat under control, that pressure has eased in terms of the work, but that it's basically been a staffing issue.
I mean, I can out that, I'm actually a contract negotiator myself, and we just settled two complicated contracts that have 5,000 people during the pandemic, because we needed priority, and most of us negotiators were not attorneys. And so I think there's a message that gets sent to the unionized workforce about the priority of the contract, and you don't get it for the settlement. So, and it's not a good thing. So, if it's a capacity issue, fine, but is it also an indication of like the parties being far apart or difficulty, or is it just from your perspective of capacity?
I think it was a capacity issue because there never really were any steps taken towards the negotiation process. Now, I'm not a labor lawyer. I knew nothing about labor law before I started this job. So, but that was there was never really anything undertaken by way of much in the way of formalized proposals prior to Attorney Al-Badi. But again, it's a capacity issue. It remains a capacity issue. So.
And I think, while we have the open contracts, I mean, there have been some talks. I don't want it to seem like no one's doing anything. I think COVID definitely played a role in that on both sides, to be frank with you, on the union side and on the city side. I think now that we have Attorney Badi here and in the last few months, even with the turn of our labor relations, I think there's been some progress in beginning those talks again with the unions. Again, 6 unions with the police union coming up. So it's also going to take a little bit more time for all that to, figure out those changes.
If I might add, I think it's not just the contract negotiations that we're dealing with, it's the day-to-day management of the contract and the requests from every department on staffing levels. And don't get me wrong, we can't live without the unions. As I said before, we have to learn to work with them. But there are different issues that a priority shift. So depending on what's going on in the community or the world, everybody shifts their priorities. So COVID was significant and it had many facets to it. So there were grievances being filed left and right. And I can almost assure you that now that we're winding down, there are COVID-related grievances that will be filed. There are matters that are in the pipeline that is going to start clogging it up, in addition to having to work on the negotiations. It's still related to COVID. We haven't seen them.
Yes, in the world of labor relations, you definitely need to at the same time. And I know that it's two angles, so the city administration is not the only party to these discussions, so the responsibility shared, but nonetheless, I just want to state my concern about those contracts. Open and not settled.
Well, thank you. We share the concern, and given the personnel and the staffing that we have, we've been doing our best to move forward. And we'll continue.
Thank you. My last question I already addressed, which is more about building a bigger bench, not in the court sense of bench, but in the sport metaphor, like having more attorneys and stuff. And I think you addressed that with the discussion we had about the different position. I would just say that this committee on many occasions over the years has encouraged the corporation counsel's office to cultivate government and try to do the work within when we can. And so we just continue to urge you to keep working on that.
We would. I think my staff works very hard. This city is very lucky to have the caliber of attorneys that we do have. And we would frankly love to have more, because I think the ones we have work pretty much above capacity now. So if the financial gods will provide us with more funding, we will be happy to go. But we will continue to work to our maximum capacity, do what we can on the inside. And we have, as I said, brought another attorney along to start training in the federal police litigation cases so that we can, work from within to move our attorneys and everyone do CHROs so that we can move towards building that and growing our business.
Thank you. Any further questions from colleagues before we move to the next part? All the best.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any opportunity for revenue generation with council or communities that, not necessarily that we win, or I don't want to say settle, but there are revenue generation opportunities.
I'm sorry, what type of opportunity? I didn't.
Making money.
Making money, revenue generating. All right, now I get it. I can't think of anything. I mean, we haven't sued anybody on the city side for damages. We have a couple, at least one idea in the pipeline, which I don't think is very frankly to discuss in a public meeting. But there aren't often opportunities. Mostly people are suing us for money. If we could get some money back, we'd love to do it.
And I guess I'm thinking like from insurance companies or, I guess it's complex, but thank you.
Opportunity to raise your hand at one point, and I see two colleagues with their hands raised. Alder Hamilton has not yet asked questions.
Thank you, Chair Martin. My question is, I want to circle back to the open contracts. There are 6 still open where there have been no movements towards negotiation, right? Have I heard that correctly?
No, that's not why I'm here. There has been movement to those negotiations on some contracts. One of them is fairly pretty far along with that. And some others we are establishing ground rules to work out to exchange proposals. So I've met literally with every union so far. And we're on the same page. We're moving.
Okay, you're moving in the direction towards settling contracts.
So
I'm sorry? Right, negotiating those contracts. Okay, understood. However, you said, I heard also that day-to-day grievances and situations that come up during the workday, day-to-day. All right, do you think in settling, possibly negotiating some of these contracts and getting them resolved might settle some of those issues that come up day-to-day with regards to grievances? I'm sure it would consist of salary issues and or whatever. Do you think that would move us closer to a resolution of contracts?
I think that what will move us closer to a resolution of contracts is trying to settle the grievances as part of package, the grievances package, and then move towards the. Some unions don't really, they insist on getting the grievances settled because there are standards that have been going on so long. The issues are prevalent. In addition to COVID affecting the city and unions, it's also affected the agency of the boards where these grievances and cases have been filed. So they were impacted as well. There's one particular board where the majority of grievances were filed. They're still doing Zoom and they haven't done in person. Some of the grievances are existing in-person hearings. That keeps happening. So that has caused some of these ones. So my goal is to try to settle these grievances as quickly as possible. And that's what we've been working on for the last couple of weeks, and we're making a lot of movement. But we can, as you said, it takes 2 to 10 parties of time.
Another follow-up, I heard about the need for additional staff within another attorney. So you got no, you said, I think I heard something about you putting a request out there for an additional attorney. No bites with that at all?
We've had one application in a month. And I have not reviewed it, but we would like a bigger candidate to it. Certainly, I'm not sure this applicant would be appropriate for the position. So, yeah, you're correct. We
Now,
have-
what's your outreach equivalent for that?
I'm sorry?
Outreach, man, outreach. Are you reaching out to, how far are you going with the outreach? program?
Well, we posted it, as attorney, Paul Barry indicated, we posted it in, the bar posting sites in a number of other professional job posting sites, so it's not just on the city website. It's on the bar association, it's done to the law school, it's done everywhere. To the law schools, it's done widely advertised.
Hear that there is only one response.
Well, we know why. but
Please use the microphone when you speak on the public.
We know why, but we continue to pursue it on the law.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Chair Marshall.
Thank you, recently former chair. Further questions? Alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To follow up on Alder Hamilton's question about the labor relations staff attorney, that's the position 8006. Is that correct? Or is that wrong?
Right.
What would a competitive salary for that position be?
I think a competitive starting salary would be around 100,000. I have reached out to a significant network of colleagues, and that's not, that the salaries too low. I looked around the state, because I came from the state, and I can tell you that that's really what the state is offering, for attorneys. It's a pretty specialized field. Labor relations, labor law is something that is sort of specialized in that. And so it proves not as extended. The one candidate applicant that we received is a first year attorney, just admitted in January. That would essentially be my first year attorney right now. Somebody that has a little bit does have a little feet, a little experience based on what they're facing. So, what they see experiences in the amount of things that they're doing. So, we continue to pursue. We have reached out and we will continue to reach out.
You're also requesting an additional $60,000 for outside services to make up for the shortage.
Yes. And that's because of the number of pending litigation matters that
I guess what I'm driving is like if you were able to hire a staff attorney early in the fiscal year, would you still foresee a need for an additional $60,000 in outside counsel? Like that's kind of booked, given the caseload that you see now.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Alderman. I think, the answer to that is yes. And I think that's because when we hire outside counsel for labor relations, that is to assist us with everything. Contract negotiations, CHROs, NPP, grievances. I think what you heard Attorney Barry say and the rest of the team was just the number of shared grievances that we have that may trickle over into next fiscal year. With the current staff levels that we have, we're certainly going to need outside counsel help. And when we look at what we've had to do the past few years, and some of those years have been to transfer additional funding because we found ourselves in this similar situation with just a shared number of items in labor relations, and now we're having the staff and the faculty to deal with some of those. As Attorney Barry mentioned, some of these are also time sensitive, because it's not always up to us to say, well, we want to hear this next May. That's not up to us. That's really up to the board that the matter may be in. So sometimes we may need outside counsel. So again, I think with capacity and the sheer number of items on the agenda, we will need the additional funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. Further questions from colleagues? Seeing none, I want to thank Counsel and the team for the presentation. You are now excused.
Thank you very much.
We'll let you away your- have a few moments to adjourn your seats or move on.
Thank you very much.
Next on the list is the Assessor's Office. I just wanted to remind colleagues that there are spaces up here now, so if colleagues would like to sit, like here at the table, feel free to come up. And address the record of the party.
Good evening to the committee. You guys hear me? Alex Pullen, Acting City Assessor, 64 Avenue North.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. We will begin on slide 25.
Slide 25.
So, looking at the assessor's office, proposed budget, you will see that there's an increase of $5,051. That is a small increase in the department that primarily deals with personnel. And there's a few changes in the non-personnel section, but are really an offset within that department. The assessor's office does not have any revenue, nor do they have any license permits and fees, so there's no changes in those, there's no additions for fiscal year 23. Going on to slide number 26, you will see that the assessor's office is really primarily made up of personnel. It is 96% of their budget. The other portions of the budget really deal with contractual services, which are really just miscellaneous items for the office, and books, and any registrations for professional development. Moving on to slide 27, you will see the changes within the fiscal year 23 budget. The salary change is reclassification of a particular position, which I'll mention on the next slide. The change in the books, maps, etc. line, the assessor's office uses the NADA books when looking at motor vehicles, and it gives reference to
The state of Connecticut has a recommended schedule and a recommended vendor for valuing all motor vehicles. So when motor vehicles are valued in the city, DMV does some of it, but the unpriced vehicles we have to do manually. And all of that valuation is done using the NADA book, which is, it's kind of like the Kelly Blue Book, it's just a different name. Where you see the increase in books, maps, and advertisement is because this was flat for a very long time. And they decided that among all Connecticut municipalities, they were raising the price of these books. And because we all use them, we have to pay.
So to make up for that, Mr. Pullen and the assistant assessor in my office really looked at his budget, and we felt that we could reduce the registration dues and subscriptions to kind of make up for a majority of that increase that we see in the book price.
And that sort of made sense to us with COVID having a lot of in-person meetings stalled. It's cheaper to go to online conferences. In addition to that, a lot of the registrations that we have are on a 2-year cycle. So you may see that a general appraiser's license need to be
renewed this year, but not next year. So in looking at our departmental need and the fact that we also have some vacancies, we were able to ascertain that we could absorb that increase by mitigating it with this decrease.
All right, so moving on to slide 28. Again, the non-personnel changes we just mentioned. The personnel change that we have in the budget is changing the assessment control clerk, which was vacated a few months ago, I believe, to an assessment information clerk 2. So this was done for really continuity of the office and to create more efficiency. We took a look at 2 job descriptions, and just as a caveat, both job descriptions are within the same union, so the union's not losing, one union's not losing a member or anything like that. But we looked at the continuity and efficiencies of how can we get better production out of that particular position. And also, just the capacity issue. Again, as I mentioned at the monthly meeting, you know, the city has a lot of vacancies, which means a lot of work for our human resources department in posting, testing, and so on. The assessment information clerk 2 was a position that was posted, and I believe in the process of already being tested. So to get more staffing capacity, it also makes sense to change that position to another position that's already in the civil service process, so we could also hire quicker for that position as well. But again, we'll also create more efficiency in Mr. Pullen's office as well. The next slide, again, just talks about the grant list. I think, you know, we went over the majority of this Monday during overview, but it just references the total grant list and then the taxable versus non-taxable. The last slide I'll let Mr. Pullen talk about is really just a quick overview of some of the things in this department.
As you all know, we have just completed a revaluation of all properties citywide, and with that comes tax appeals. As the Corporation Counsel stated earlier, we currently have 1,600 tax appeals. The Board of Assessment Appeals is currently downstairs in my office, making a lot of noise and conducting a lot of hearings. A lot of people have had their assessments increase and they want to talk about it. Part of my job as the assessor and the job of my office is to not only set the value of these properties, the list of stubborn value, but also to support those values in court alongside our Corporation Counsel and outside counsel. So again, as they stated, of these 1,600 appeals, 400 of these appeals were over $1 million. And the state statute gives the board the authority to say, you know what? We're not going to hear these appeals at all. We're going to send out a letter and we're going to send you straight to Superior Court. So in preparation for that, what our office will be doing over the course of the next few years actually is we'll be analyzing sales, preparing discovery responses, attending both in-person and virtual pre-trials with Corporation Counsel. And that's just to keep those grand list losses as low as we possibly can. So that is the majority of what I will be doing for the next probably 2 years. When an assessment cycle begins is when you have the most appeals and the most court cases. And as you get towards the end of that 5-year cycle, they start to trickle down. Even with this new assessment appeals cycle starting with the new revaluation, we're still closing out some from the last 2016 revaluation.
All right, Mr. Chair, I believe that's what myself and Mr. Pullen have, so we will open it up with any questions.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Just as a reminder to colleagues that in a meeting on Monday, we heard from these gentlemen about the overview of the budget, so someone about the evaluation of those phase. And what we're seeing before us today is much more the nitty-gritty operational aspect of the assessor's office, including the impact of the deals on staffing and the budget, And so that's how we're focus on that portion of the discussion. Any questions from colleagues for the executive officer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the topic you just explained, Mr. Cohen, how does that hinder the city, 400 appeals or even the past appeals? What has historically been concluded to what losses have we seen or what gains have we seen when these appeals take place?
Well, we won't see any gains from assessment appeals because it's typically people coming to us and appealing their value because they want a reduction. Over the past, I would say 5 years of the reval cycle, it's been about a 1% reduction of the amount.
So it doesn't affect it greatly, but it's still at 1%.
Correct.
If it comes back to you, let us know. Further questions from colleagues, over winter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How does this volume of appeals compare to prior revaluation years?
I can't speak to every revaluation year, but I can tell you that it's a lot more than we had last time because the increases are more drastic.
Could you give us a general sense of how much more? Is it double? Is it 50% more or something?
I don't remember the exact numbers, but I can research them for you. I believe Court Counsel said it earlier, but to be honest, it's been a long night and I don't remember what the number was from 2016.
It seems like it might be helpful, if not 2 years ago.
You want to make that request to the chair? Take it under consideration.
And at this point, it's no longer possible for appeals to be filed, or can they still be filed through some court process?
The
Could we
appeal,
see more than we see?
the appeal deadline was February 20th. So anyone who wanted to appeal their property would have had to get that paperwork in with the Board of Assessment Appeals by the 20th of February. The hearings are now being conducted. They have to be finished with their duties by the end of March. And anyone who is still not satisfied with the board's decision will then have 60 days during which they could appeal to Superior Court. Now, for anyone who has missed the application deadline, they do have another statutory mechanism by which they can appeal directly to the court within 1 year of the revaluation date, but that would be under statute 12-119, which would have to prove that something the assessor's office has done was manifestly excessive. It's a very hard burden of proof for the taxpayer because it has to essentially show that we did something egregious, borderline criminal, and fixing their system.
And do we have any data or anecdotal experience that a phase-in of assessments would reduce appeals or litigation without appeals?
I have not done research on appeals as related to phase-in, but we have had phase-ins in the past, and we've still had a lot of appeals. But in terms of an apples to apples comparison, I don't know the exact number.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Ritter. Further questions from colleagues? Have you remembered your question, Alderman? Now is your chance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It actually has to do with the Board of Assessment Appeals and the process. Do we have the capacity to hear all the cases by the end of March? Seems like 1,600 is quite a lot. How do we schedule them? How many BAA members do we currently have that can hear the cases? How will it affect that due date deadline?
Well, that's really a question for the board, but I'll do my best to answer it. There's 3 members that are appointed by the mayor. They have 2 secretaries. And They're meeting with as many people as they can. It appears as though they're going to finish their duties in a timely manner. They're working very hard, and we have an employee of the assessor's office who is helping them with some of the technical aspects and some of the clerical work as well.
So I also, Professor, to add on to that, I also just want to mention that when it comes to the Board of Assessment Appeals, they are really governed by, Mr. Foley can correct me, they're governed really by a lot of state statutes. And they're not really under a city department, right? So they kind of operate on their own. What we try to do is provide administrative support, especially in this instance where there's 1,600 appeals. Our role as a city is really, could we help them out in any administrative capacity, which we have. And as Mr. Fulton said, they've been here morning, noon, night. You know, I was on an email, but they're gonna be here Friday, Saturday. So those members really create their schedule, and you know, we really just help them from an administrative standpoint.
Thank you.
It's human work for that, for sure. When it's a busy time, it's a busy time, for sure. Further questions from colleagues? Alderman Nicola.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Alex Bowen, was he said that our normal appeals, we lose 1%. So when you say 1%, 1% of what? The new increase of 8 billion, the assessed value of our taxable properties?
When I say 1%, I mean, over the course of 5 years, we lose about 1% of the value on the real estate claims.
So that's, what would be the number, 1% of the general, or just 1% of every case?
1% of the number off the assessed value of the grant. It's not 1% of the cases.
Okay, so that's like $8 million, right? If you go 1%. Just trying to get a number, because you made a statement that we had to take into consideration the losses for doing this reval as a phase-in, and there was a statement made about, well, we have cases and we might lose some revenue. So basically, we're looking at 1%, $8 million per year, right? 80 million.
And it may be different because of the phase-in, because we're not looking at the full 100% value in any given year. We're only looking at 20% of the increase. So that's, you know, those are numbers that would have to be calculated in the future. We can't give you a number now because we don't know what the mill rate's going to be every given year. We don't know how many of these cases we're going to lose. But what we can say is, looking at the past 5 years, this is roughly what the numbers are.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get is, what is the number? You gotta have a number. You say 1%, so I'm just trying to figure out when we do mill rate and discuss it. You're saying that we have a possible loss, so I'm trying to understand the loss going over 1 year at a time. That's what I'm trying to understand. You made a statement of 1%, so I'm trying to understand what the 1% is by a number. Because I have to put this in my thoughts when I wrote it.
So I think through the chair, or me and Mr. Fulton can do is get that. I think you're looking for a value number of other like, let's say 50 million, 80 million, you know, based on it would be based on the grand list that we use within the each year in the past 5 years. And we can look at that value loss so we can kind of see where the numbers fall. I think that's what you're looking for.
Yes, I'm trying to get a number in my head. That's not a percentage.
You're looking for a number on a per year basis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Nicola. Yeah, any further questions from colleagues? Alderman Fiscal, this is your third opportunity, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on that, can you define loss? Because when folks go for appeals, it could be a mistake that was made. It could be based on, maybe loss is not the right
word because there are many factors. I'm thinking that go into an appeal.
Well, when I use the word loss, I mean revenue loss, because it's a lowering of the revenue that we would be getting.
Correct, so I think I know what you're saying, because it's either, when we say loss, it's because of an adjustment to an appeal, right? So if the normal grant was just making it up in a year was $6 billion, then tax appeals we may have lost $50 million off of that grant list because of appeals. So that's what we say when we mean loss is really, what were the adjustments that were made to whatever property were in the appeal?
It's a net decrease in the overall value.
Correct, you could say net decrease and not loss,
You
but
could lose the case, this is a decrease in value.
Right.
This is different.
Mistakes are made during revals and we have to adjust for those mistakes, which ends up being a loss or adjustment
correct.
in that value. Is that wrong?
If that's your opinion, then
I think,
That's how I understand.
yeah, I think when we say loss, we're just talking about any value loss on the grant list, whether it's a mistake that someone made, it went through the appeals process, or someone appealed because they felt their value of their property was higher and the appeals board lowered it, or through whatever other mechanism. Loss encompasses everything that's a decrease in the value.
so we should say revenue loss or assessment loss the next time to eliminate confusion.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I know that there's a request through me from all the color to get some historical data. My question to you, Mr. Bowman, is when do we no longer have to guess about the net grant list decrease? When does that number become clear? Because the process is over, it's all the counties that we know.
In terms of tax appeals, we won't because it's ongoing. And every year, cases are resolved. And I would say this year, most cases won't be resolved because things will progress from the Board of Assessment Appeals, then they'll go to Superior Court. We'll probably have some continuances. We'll meet, we'll try to mediate these things in pretrial mediations. And if anything goes to trial, it probably won't be until next year. So every year, some cases get resolved. Next year, more cases get resolved. I would say it's typically in years, probably in year 2, where most of these things really start to hit the Superior Court.
So we're gonna look at it and try to give a good explanation of it, but that's kind of what I was gonna talk to Alex about. Some of these go on for years, so it's not like if we say we lost $50 million in fiscal year 21, that 50 million could be an appeal that was from 5 years ago. So again, just keeping that in the back of your mind as well.
But we're still collecting.
Well, that over, that's you want the floor?
No, I thought I was still up. Yeah.
That's all right. But I think you have a good idea. The questions come from a concern about potential future decreases in the value of the grant list, which would then increases in our taxable revenues. And so whatever information you provide us to be educated in our guesses going forward, that's what the audit is. That's helpful for us as we consider the overall picture of our revenue and expenditures during the deliberations in May. So whatever information you provide to help us be more educated on it. No problem. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Further questions from colleagues? Alderman Winter?
This might be sort of a basic question, but a taxpayer files an appeal of their valuation. Do they typically just pay the previous tax bill? And, or what, how does that sort of affect the city's cash flow?
Well, the tax bills for this coming revaluation will not be due payable until July 1. They're going through the appeals process now, and if they choose to continue on through Superior Court, depending on when that resolves, they would have to pay the full amount of tax or pay under protest, depending on how much the bill is. I believe it's 80% that they would have to pay, and over a certain amount, it may be 70%, but that, I'd have to verify that with the collector. But that's essentially how that works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions? Seeing none, I want to thank you gentlemen for this. We've actually got more information about the tax appeal process than we've gotten before, and it's been educational. Appreciate your time and your hard work for, on behalf of those.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee.
Next, we will have the Board of Alders. I believe Mr. Lucas will come forward and join the board. Before we proceed with the Board of Alders, I want to just let everyone here know that after Mr. Lucas concludes his presentation, we can do a 5-minute session before we conclude with finance and finance other.
Good day. All Finance Committee, our 56 on closed, we live in Connecticut. And I'm the director of the Office of Legislative Affairs. Our budget for review that has a downward change from the previous year. That is due to the long-term employees leaving and us replacing them with new staff who will be paid likely less when they come in. Other than that, there are no major changes to the budget. So there is one correction that I know that the budget director and controller is aware of. There's one service error in the budget book. One of our positions is listed incorrectly. In terms of the title, everything else is correct. In terms of the salary, but the position and the position number, but the position title will be corrected. And we'll do that when the time is appropriate. So other than that, I will take you all questions and go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Anything to add, Mr. Romney?
Not
Thank you, sir. Questions about the budget from the Office of Legislative Services? Questions on the item? Seeing none, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And before we take our recess, I wanted to ask Mr. Hayden, I saw that you brought the sign-up sheet. There was a bunch of names on it, there were probably city staff signing and not members of the public. I don't see any members of the public. I did not close the public portion because I thought folks might end up showing up late. But I'll take an opportunity to do that now. Any members of the public wishing to testify on the mayor's proposed budget for this fiscal year? Any members of the public wishing to testify on the mayor's proposed budget for fiscal year 2023? And for the third time, any members of the public wishing to testify on budget for next fiscal year? Or the public? A motion has been made to close the public portion and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Oh. All those say nay. Okay. Any opposed saying nay? No. The motion carries. The public portion is closed, and now we're going to take a 5-minute recess.